What's up, everybody? It's Danny Green here. My co-host, Harrison Sanford, Inside the Green Room, brought to you by Jack in the Box. We've been so kindly be joined, the guy who should have been on the Dream Team and many more other teams you should have been on, Isiah Thomas, the real Isiah Thomas. Everybody keeps adding the young one. This is the real one. Not saying little Isiah. He's not a real Isiah. He's good too, very good. But this is the original Isiah Thomas. So welcome to the show, man. Really appreciate you taking your time out. Thank you, man, so much for joining us. And let's jump into some good topics outside of discussing Dream Team and Michael. We want to talk about your champagne. Tell us about that a little bit.
Well, I'm going to talk about our champagne because
okay, yes.
The Players Association and Think 450 actually are equity partners with me, and I got the bottle here, so they would be remiss if I didn't hold it up and show it. It's Sherlon champagne. You and I and all the NBA players, we got. They just told me to keep holding up. We got close to 200 acres over in the Aube region of Champagne, which is the oldest region of Champagne. Our champagne is the only first press of the grape champagne that's in the United States, low in sugar and zero sugar. This bottle here only has 5 grams of sugar. It's 1 gram per glass. We're the largest, highest volume producer of first press grape champagne in the United States. We got the only 90 plus rated portfolio of champagnes in the United States. None of our champagnes are second and third press. A lot of those marketed champagnes that we've been drinking, the ones that you get a headache from, or if you drink too much of it, you throw up. Those are second and a third press of the grapes. And just to give you an example, the third press of the grapes is actually used for making vinegar and perfume. So, just like a lot of us have become wine connoisseurs, it's good to be partners with the 450 NBA players and, enjoy your Sherlon champagne.
For sure. So these will be, please tell me, these will be, if we win, if the Lakers win this year, will these be in the locker room for us to be able to celebrate with?
They will be in the locker room if you guys decide to celebrate with them. And I would suggest you should celebrate with your own champagne and promote your own champagne, because every time a bottle of this gets sold, you get paid.
For sure. For sure. And speaking of grapes, it's funny you mentioned it. I don't know if you knew this, Zeke, but I do have a grape line that I partnered with out here in California. So hopefully one day we might be able to make some happen. They're actually really good grapes, but I'm sure you have a particular grape that
we should definitely do something together. I mean, the champagne is a very exclusive category. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you're making red wine or white wine, but we definitely should do something together.
For sure. I'm not a wine drinker, but a lot of
wine party.
Yeah, a lot of the guys on the team drink wine, and I have the pristine grapes, which has been great for me this year, and people are starting to love it. But tell us how the pandemic's affected that. Obviously you said you're still number one selling in the country. Tell how it's affecting how you're handling, how you're holding up, how business is holding up, and how you're handling it, your family's handling it since the pandemic has started.
I'll start with the family. Family is holding up, and I don't know if you know, but my daughter tested positive for the virus. And actually she's on the other side of it now.
Okay,
and
good.
She's doing quite well, and knock on wood, and I thank everybody for their prayers. So we're all holding up, and everybody's healthy, and the most important thing right now is we got love to keep us together, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And on the business side, like every other business, we've taken a little hit also. Because when the economy slowed down and people stopped being able to move around, a lot of our business depends on the hospitality industry. So the hotels, the restaurants, and also the nightclubs and everything else that you may frequent. We took a little hit there, but fortunately enough for us, and thanks to you guys also, a lot of people do know about the champagne. So they've been able to go online and order it. So they ordered from wine.com, they ordered it from different outlets. And since some of the stores have stayed open, we're in the major chains, we're in the Fry's out in Arizona, we're in all the Myers, and we're in the Kroger's. So people are going in the stores and buying the champagne too.
Are you So first and foremost, I'm glad your daughter's good and healthy and safe and doing better. And everybody in your family has been good. Are you in Detroit right now? Are you anywhere near? Are you in Chicago? Where are you
I'm in
located
New
right
York
now?
right now.
You're in
I'm
New York right now.
in
Okay.
New York part of town.
But is a lot of your family and friends back in Chicago, Detroit area?
Yeah, so my family and friends, all my family, I'm originally from the west side of Chicago.
Okay.
So all of my family is, the majority of my family is in Chicago, Detroit. We're pretty much a Midwest family. Do
Okay.
have family in Texas and Memphis also, but for the most part, we're in the Midwest.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is because we want to know, we haven't talked to anybody from those areas and seeing how it's affected those areas in Chicago and Detroit. Please give us a little insight on that. If you have talked to your family, if you haven't been back to the Chicago or Detroit area, tell us how they're handling the pandemic in those cities.
So, and just like here in New York, as you know, we're in a hot spot here in New York.
Yeah, hotbed.
And as the virus continues to move across the country, the three places in the Midwest that it's actually affected, pretty significantly is Michigan in terms of Detroit, where I have a lot of family at and friends, and also Illinois. So we just all try to get on and have Zoom chats every day from 4 to 6. Fortunately enough for me, my son will get on and play music and DJ, and we talk, and it's really been a good way to get connected. All of us have been touched one way or the other by someone passing away, whether it be a friend or a relative that's been close to us, because this virus has really hit all of us. But the one thing I think it's also done, at least from us, from a family who really didn't use Zoom as much, it used to be you only have a family reunion once every 4 or 5 years. Now it's like we having a family reunion every day because people from Memphis, people from Mississippi, people from everywhere coming in. And it's like you're talking to people that you hadn't talked to in years. So that's one way it's been good.
Great.
Yeah, there's a number of, it's a negative situation, but there are a number of positives that we can bring out from a moment like this. I don't have an NBA title to celebrate, but I imagine when this is all over, the person who comes up with the vaccine and all the healthcare workers, there should be an unlimited supply of champagne for them, one would hope.
And we're just going to keep it specific and say it's Sherlan champagne.
There you go.
We're not going to broaden the category.
Sherlan champagne only.
Yes. We want everybody drinking the best of the best in the first press.
Exactly.
There you go.
If you're not drinking the first press, then you're not drinking the best.
There you go. I like that one. Isiah, we have a number of topics that we would love to discuss. Obviously, we want to tap into some of your Indiana days, as well as the Lakers Pistons finals history. But first, obviously, the main thing in the sports world right now is The Last Dance. How have you received some of the reaction to the most recent episodes, particularly as it pertains to your exclusion from the Dream Team and the controversy where your team walked past Jordan, and now the public's getting to kind of see it again? How have you taken the reaction to that?
It's been interesting, and I'm sure Danny can relate to it. And I'll just start with having a chance to peek behind the curtain of the opponent, because when you're competing against a team, you never really know the inner workings of the organization, what's really going on. You hear bits and pieces, but looking back now and having a chance to really look through their organization and how they were working. I'm enjoying the doc. I'm fascinated at the relationship that they had with Jerry Krause. During that period of time, right? Jack McCloskey, who was the president GM for the Pistons, Jerry West, president GM of the Lakers, Red Auerbach, president GM of the Celtics, and Jerry Krause. Hey, them was the dudes, man. You know what I mean? That era, those are the people who were winning championships. So you didn't really know from the outside looking in that they had that much kind of animosity going on inside with their president and GM. In terms of myself, I never knew that hearing Jordan say that he had hate in his heart for me. I never thought of it that way. You know, it was surprising to me because you know, we've seen each other since 1991, 92. You know, and every time we've met, it's always been friendly. It's always been cordial. You know, my son was wearing, you know, the Bulls 23 jersey and, you know, wore his Olympic jersey, had the shoes and everything else. So we thought everything, at least I thought everything was in between the four lines. I never thought it carried out of the four lines, and I never carried out of the four lines. So it's just interesting to see how everything is kind of playing out. And really, I'm enjoying the doc. I don't know about you, but I'm enjoying it.
I think we all are, man. But I think if you know Michael Annie, he's so competitive that you beat up on him enough times. Y'all were beating him, and y'all were beating up on him. That he was going to probably take it outside the lines a little bit. But obviously that's way back in the day. How are you guys, you said your relationship now, where do you guys stand now?
I don't know. I mean, really, I thought everything was all right. I mean, I've been to dinner with he and Ahmad Rashad. You know, as you can see, I covered his games when I was working for NBC. And, you know, really, I didn't know that. I didn't know it was this kind of ice. But really, I have no bitterness or hatred in my heart. And when you say we back in the 80s, I do want to clarify this. I mean, everybody was getting hit. I mean, Danny, there's no one who got hit more than me. And I got the scars to prove it now. And by the way, I'm 6 feet tall. I'm not 6'6", 6'7". So I was getting a lot of hits upside the head. But that's the way the game was played. And in terms of, you know, us as a basketball team, you know, and I've said this before, you know, if we, you know, particularly myself, if we had a chance to do it all over again, you know, knowing what we know now, of course we would do it differently. And of course I would do it differently. But during that point in time, when you, and Danny, you, like I say, you understand this emotion better than anybody, you know. It's one thing climbing the mountain, but when you lose and you coming down the mountain, those emotional feelings that you're having of losing and everything else, you're more into celebrating yourself and you know, feeling sorry for yourself. You know, so that lapse in judgment that I particularly had, you know, I own it, I claim it, and I've said I apologize for it. But at the end of the day, you know, that was the emotion at that time, and that's what we did.
Nah, ball players fully understand, professionals fully understand behind the scenes. If you played during certain type or certain era, you know how things were handled or how things were done. And there's always sort of more than one side of the story. And I think everybody understands why certain things have happened or did happen. You know, what was, I guess, the trend during that time. So, you know, I understood fully. Obviously, they didn't take light to everything, but they said the past is the past. Move forward, get past it. And I feel like you guys, I'm sure you guys are fine. In his mind, I think he's just going back to those days and just reminiscing of when he was getting beat up and losing. I just think he still didn't like it, left a bad taste in his mouth.
Isiah,
well, who likes losing?
Exactly. Especially not him. Especially not him. So.
Isiah, speaking of competition, I know yesterday at one point Michael Goldbaum had some comments as it pertains to the number of players that he originally thought were against your inclusion in the Dream Team, and then he clarified those comments. Obviously, you weren't a part of that 92 team. You had an opportunity in 94, but then you had the Achilles injury that kind of curtailed that effort. What could happen now to make you feel better about not being included on that team? Because I think it's consensus among everybody who was on that team that you deserve to be on it.
So I'll answer both parts of the questions. And you know, after the announcement of what Wilbon said in terms of, you know, everybody, or there were at least 9 players that didn't want me on the team. I actually talked to 8 of them, they all called me up because, everybody's still kind of friendly.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, well, I wasn't one of the guys. It wasn't me. And before you know it, the numbers started, adding up. And so credit to Mike Wilbon, though, for just saying, hey, different people reached out to me and I was wrong on terms of the numbers. So it's good to know that, still there's a brotherhood that exists between all of us as current and former players that, when you right, you right. And when you're wrong, you're wrong. That's just how it still goes. And what was the second part of that question?
What could happen now to make you feel better about not being a part of that team? Is there anything that could be done?
And this is all of us, right? As athletes, when you try to make the team, sometimes you don't make the team.
Yeah.
And Danny, I know, I don't know how it was back in your day, but you had to try out, make the team, and they put the name up on the you go look and see if your name is there, and if your name's not there, you just try to get better.
For sure.
And when I didn't make the team, and you can go back and you can look at any of my quotes, when I didn't make the team, of course I was hurt, like any other person would be hurt or disappointed. But I rooted for the USA team. As I said, I bought my son the jersey, and we rooted for the Olympic team. We wanted them to win the gold medal. I watched every game, and I was a supporter. I wasn't a participant. Now, did I want to be a participant? Absolutely. Who doesn't want to make the Olympic team? Who doesn't want to be a part of that?
Yeah.
But in terms of like hating somebody or being bitter or how do you make it right, it is what it is. I didn't make the team, and I truly moved on. Now the reason why it comes up, it didn't come up from me. It comes up from everyone else saying you should have been on the team. I've never said I should have been on the team. I said I met the criteria, but I wasn't selected, which is a meme now.
That's pretty funny, man. But yeah, I would definitely love to be on an Olympic team one day. I mean, I'll probably never make one, but it's always a dream of everybody. And he said sometimes you just don't make it, but obviously you meet the criteria. I don't know if I'd ever met the criteria. I've seen a couple different interviews, a couple different things. Now, after watching the part of the doc and the series, where do you put Michael on your list? Because there was some talk that you didn't think he might have been the greatest of all time. Or do you think after watching or playing against him and seeing obviously present day era, do you put Michael at number one, or will you have him top 3, top 5?
So that's a 2-part question. The way it was asked to me, they asked me during that particular time, who were the top 5 players that I had to compete with in the 80s, right? And that was my time frame. And in the 80s, it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Jordan, and then Dr. J. Now, why is Dr. J 5? Because I caught Dr. J on the tail end of his career. When I came in, they had just won the NBA championship, the 76ers. And then after that, Boston, LA, and then Detroit. And so those were my biggest competitors. And by the way, if I was trying to make myself look good, I would say Jordan was my biggest competitor because of all those people I just named, I beat him the most. So that would just make me look better if I put him at number 1 in terms of the competition that I had to face during the 80s.
Okay.
Now, who's my GOAT? Okay. My GOAT, greatest of all time, to me, that's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, when I was announcing in the 90s, I had an opinion and I said, hey, Jordan's the GOAT, so forth and so on. But then it's like, okay, because before that, this GOAT conversation and all this new stuff that's coming on that y'all brought into the game. You know what I mean? Y'all start asking these real critical questions like, well, who really is the best for us? We was just like, going along with it. But these are good questions. So when I look back and when I went back and I actually examined and I critiqued and I studied, there's no person in the history of our sport, from grade school to high school to college to the NBA, has had a better basketball playing career than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And then when you take into account what he stood for in terms of social justice during that period of time, you know, the stance that he took outside of the playing field, you know, those are big things in my mind in terms of what the GOAT was. That's why Muhammad Ali is still the GOAT today, not because he could knock people out, but also the stances he took outside of the playing field. So to me, when I look at Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's 6 championships, 6 or 7 MVPs, scored the most points anybody in the NBA, lost 1 game in college, lost 1 game in high school, and didn't lose in grade school. Didn't nobody say that. To me, that's the GOAT.
That's pretty special, man. That's pretty special. Interesting enough, Harrison, sorry before you, because I want to stay on this topic. Obviously, you listed your GOATs, and Mike has listed you as number 2 of his best point guards of all time, right behind Magic. First, give us your thoughts on that, and also give us your thoughts on the point guards today, or who you would rank in your top 5 greatest point guards of all time.
You know, for me, and by the way, you know, I thank him for acknowledging that. But I would just say that, you know, to me, in my rankings, Magic Johnson and Oscar Robertson, those 2 guys, to me, they're up there.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that, because Danny, you know, as you play, right? I'm sorry, size matters. You know,
Yeah.
you know, if the athlete that you're playing against is bigger than you, if he's stronger than you and he's faster than you, that person has an advantage. He has a huge advantage. And the only way a smaller person can beat a bigger person in the game of basketball is if that bigger person makes a mistake that allows that smaller person to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
But if they come to the game and they got the same intellect and they playing with the same smarts and the same that bigger guy is gonna beat that smaller guy every single time.
LeBron James.
So yeah, it's LeBron James, right? LeBron James brings an intellect to the game where he don't make a lot of mistakes. And when you bigger, faster, stronger, you got an advantage. That's what sports is. Now, when you drop it down to the small people, like the guards of like myself, Stockton, Chris Paul, Steph Curry, you know, Jason Kidd, so forth and so on. And I thought Jason Kidd was my size until I met him.
Yeah. No, he's a bigger guard.
Yeah. You know, but when you drop it down like that, right, it's like all of us on any given day, and I mean this for real, because, and Danny, you know, you done played a lot. I keep coming back to you saying this, you know, on any given day, there are some guys that you may meet in the park one day, and if they the same size as you, they may give it to you that day.
Yeah.
But the little guys, right, the only advantage we have is really our intellect.
Yeah.
We all just as fast, right? None of us got like Jordan had a 49-inch vertical.
Yeah.
None of us got that, right? So it's like so it all depends on what day you actually match us up on, if we gonna get each other. Hey, I saw Kyrie and Steph going at it, right?
Yeah.
Me in this era of point guards, you know, and Chris Paul is a little older than those 2, so I'm gonna put him in another category. But Steph right now and Kyrie, every time those 2 play against each other, to me, that's must-see TV, man, from a little guy's perspective.
Yeah, for
now,
sure.
You probably want to see the wing guys play, the taller people, but I'm looking at, if I had to give my ranking, it's hard for me to give a ranking because really it's an acquired taste.
For sure. Is there any guys, young guys, like you said, Kyrie and Steph, is there any young guys that you see breaking into that or surpassing that and becoming one of those top guards that you like their games in particular?
Well, I think like you were taught at a very young age, and also, you know, being in San Antonio and, you know, now with the Lakers and in Toronto, you know, there's playing in the NBA, and then there's winning championships in the NBA. And, you know, there are different levels to it. And I know people don't want to hear it that way, and they think, oh, well, this guy got lucky, he was on the right team, and so forth. No, it's a little bit more than that, right?
Yeah.
And so my criteria still is, can you win a championship at the highest level? And not can you accumulate, great stats at the highest level, because all of us as basketball players and NBA players, we do know how to manipulate a game to get stats. Now, the average fan don't want to believe that, but yeah, we do. And a lot of us don't do that. But at the same time, there are some who do. But the champions have to come to the table correct, play the game correctly, and the game rewards you for that. And so I look at the guards, and I always measure, like, first let's count the rings, and then let's talk about play.
Yep.
There you go.
Speaking of rings, Isiah, I try to look back at these games from the 80s, and the one thing I find unfortunate, it's almost as if each team's peak was at different times. You had the Celtics, and then they started to kind of deteriorate. Then you have your team, and you guys started to deteriorate a little bit. And then the Bulls. And then meanwhile, the Lakers as well, because we're going to talk about the finals, Magic Johnson and Byron Scott were hurt for that one series when you guys played off in the finals. I think the one disappointing thing to me as a fan, it seems as if no team was ever at their peak and really facing each other. But if they were, and I know you have a bias here, how do you think that plays out? If every team, no injuries, they're playing at their peak ages and things of that nature.
And I'm going to say, by you asking that question, you must be a Laker fan. So I know.
I'm an NBA fan. I'm an NBA fan who's cognizant of all the facts.
No. I'm teasing. And I hope as we get to know each other, you know that I got a little bit of sense of humor.
It's all good.
Like I remember. I saw Danny in the elevator one time, and I just walked up to him and I hugged him. Danny! And he was like, what the hell, man? But that's why the NBA and trying to win a championship, they used to say it's a marathon, not a sprint. And during that time, we didn't have load management. So what went into your conditioning and also your stamina and your ability to endure. It was winning the championship back at the time was an endurance test also. So all those things were part of the criteria of measurement that you got measured on. So the teams that could last the longest, that can endure the longest, they were rewarded. But also at that time, you always had the young lion coming in. You always had the upstart team, trying to catch the older team, and the older team possessed wisdom. They possess knowledge, and I keep going back to Danny, who may have a chance to win the championship with 3 different teams, San Antonio, Toronto, and possibly the Lakers, and there's an intellect that come along with that, right? You can play hard, you can run hard, but do you know how to win the game in those crucial moments? And there's a part of the game, there's a 3 or 4 minute part in the game where it's a 48-minute game, but these 3 minutes can be in the first quarter, the second quarter, or the third, but you got to know when those 3 minutes are. And if you win, you can win the game in 3 minutes of the 45 or the 48-minute game. And that's what that was the wisdom that the older players had. So you always had to bring your briefcase of knowledge to beat those older teams. So when you talk about, well, they got old at the end, physically they did, but mentally they were much smarter because they didn't waste as much energy as you did. So it was always a challenge beating those teams. And actually when we beat the Celtics and when we beat the Lakers, it was okay. It's almost like you graduated from college. What I mean?
You can get to the next level.
That professor that you always had, who always gave you red ink on your paper, right? They was just sitting there like, okay, next.
Yeah, exactly. The teams that you're always losing to or finally get past. It's like you said, it's like moving next level on a class course or graduating. As you say that, because each year you prepare for that. Every time you lose, you prepare for the team that you lost to. We lost to OKC. It was perfect for OKC. We lost to Miami. We got to prepare for Miami. All year round, we prepare for those teams. When we finally got it done, then it's like, okay, it's more of a relief. Like, oh, we finally passed the class.
And Danny, so let me ask you this question. So, and I just know from my experience, what you just described, when we lost to Boston, we weren't thinking about nobody else. Like, people want to think like, okay, oh, well, you just saying this because you got something against Jordan. And it wasn't the competition. They just really wasn't the competition. And if you look at the record, you'll see like they won the competition. The competition for us was Boston. But every game, no matter who we were playing, in our mind, we were playing the Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
So we were prepared to play the Boston Celtics for 82 games.
Yeah.
You know, is that how it was for you too?
That's exactly how it was. That's the team to beat. The team to beat was Miami at the time, or Golden State, you know, or OKC, because we're in the West. We had to beat OKC and Miami after that, but then Golden State emerged. So it was always like, all right, we got to prepare. If we want to win and be the last team standing, we got to prepare every night to beat this team. It's the team to beat, whether it's in the East or overall.
So if you were playing the Denver Nuggets in Denver in December, was Pop at that time talking to you about
for sure
the Miami Heat?
Oh, for sure. And that, you can't make those mistakes against them.
That's what people don't understand, like that mental process and that mental thought.
For sure. Going back to the finals and the games, and obviously you got a chance to play against teams, healthy, unhealthy, and you were unhealthy for one of those games. You're almost able to stop a back-to-back for the Lakers. With I guess in Game 6, Game 7, you hurt your ankle.
Yeah.
Take us back to those moments and what stood out the most to you during that time of when you said you had an opportunity to stop this back-to-back championship by the Lakers. Obviously, you hated them and you're preparing for Boston and also the Lakers at that time. Take us back to those final, Game 6 and 7 of what the things that stood out to you most that you remember, good and bad.
Well, I would say that the good is our progression as a team. From 86 to 90, I think we were something like 250 and 90 in terms of wins and losses. You know, it's some crazy number that we were. But when we get to LA in 88, I feel like we're the best team. And if you look at all the stats, we won all the stats, but lost the series.
Better shooting percentage, better rebounding. Probably came down to free throws or something. They probably just less free throws or turnover to 1 or 2 turnovers, fast break points. One of those small things change the game.
And they knew how to win. So I always look back and we say if I don't get hurt in Game 6, yes, we win that series. And we also say if Kareem don't get the foul call at the end, to send it to a Game 7, we win that series. Now, here's the lessons learned, right? You got injured. And remember, Danny, you say, hey, injuries are part of the game.
For sure. Yeah,
injuries are part of the game. No excuses, right? And guess what? You wasn't up enough points, so that foul call, had you done your job correctly, Kareem never would have had a chance to get that call and go to the line and make those free throws. So you learn that. So the next year you come back, and I know you say, well, this person got hurt, this person got hurt. We never made that excuse. Injuries are part of the game. And from an endurance standpoint, they couldn't endure, just like in 88, we couldn't endure. And that's how it goes.
Yeah, it's we look back at Danny's championship last year. You had the KD injury. Klay Thompson went down in Game 6. It's as time goes on, you kind of forget those things. But when you look back, you're like, yeah, well, this was an impact. But you're right. Endurance does play a big factor.
It's the team that's playing the best and the healthiest. And Golden State was the healthiest before previous to that point for the past 5 years. And that's why they won so much. And we're in the finals every time in the last 5 years. So.
Isiah, so
I'm watching that Cleveland final, and LeBron James, and this to me, LeBron James is the most amazing thing I've ever seen as a basketball player athlete. I say Kareem's the GOAT and everything else, but what I'm watching with LeBron James, I ain't never seen nothing like this.
Yeah.
I have never in my life, my basketball watching life, seen a player do what LeBron James is capable of doing, assist-wise, rebounding-wise, scoring-wise, leadership-wise, off the court-wise. We ain't had nobody like this dude.
Yeah.
And so going back to my point, I'm watching LeBron James in the finals. Kyrie Irving is hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Love is out.
Yeah.
And he getting it done with Matthew Dellavedova.
Yeah.
He had me thinking like, damn, Deli G, this a bad dude. He had me thinking like, hey man, Deli G is like he had me thinking like, okay, he can guard Steph Curry. He doing a good job on Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Realistically, you like, come on, man, Steph. But that's how good LeBron was doing
For sure.
at the time. And it's like, look what he working with.
And he had his guys playing their best basketball. He knows how to get the best out of his team and his teammates. So he had Deli playing on a level that said people were thinking, Deli's good. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that Deli's not good, but he had him playing on a Steph level. And you're like, wow, he actually is playing really great defense on Steph. But Harrison, I'll let you get your last question before I wrap it up and ask my last question.
Sure. And one thing, Isiah, that's not highlighted as much because The Last Dance is pretty much focused on Michael Jordan and the Bulls is Joe Dumars. Obviously a Hall of Famer, had a great career, your backcourt mate. I want to go back to your second NBA title. I believe it was Game 4. And before that game, you found out some news as it pertains to Joe Dumars. Hold on 1 second here. Before that game, you found out some information as pertains to Joe Dumars' father, his passing away. And from my understanding, you had to retain that information. You couldn't share it with him. And you go ahead and you play the game and you guys win. Can you take us through those moments and absorbing that responsibility of holding in that news?
That was I was honored to be trusted with it. But B, to actually hold it and be next to a person, competing with him, playing with him, and the love that we shared for each other as teammates and brothers, to actually be holding that information while trying to compete and play a game, knowing that you're getting ready to shatter this person's world in the next hour by what you're getting ready to say to him. That was difficult. Because every time I looked at him, what I was holding inside and looking at him, it was extremely difficult emotionally, but you had to do it.
I feel like that has to put a lot of weight on you. It has to affect your game. I don't know how you play a basketball game knowing that or thinking that, and still be able to win and play at a high level, man. That's tough, man. That's tough. I said I didn't get a chance to see the game. I didn't know this information until later. I don't know what the numbers were for you and for him, but do you recall what the numbers were? Like, how well did he play? How well did you play? And afterwards, what was the moment like that you shared? Was you able to take him outside the locker room, away from everybody? And, how was that discussed, or how was it brought to the table? Yeah.
You making me go there. That's so. I think we both played well, and not only did we play well, we ended up winning the game. And I remember after the game, us celebrating, going to the locker room because we had won a. It's very rare to win a road game. Win a road game in the NBA Finals. There's nothing like So yeah. And so we go in the locker room, and as we go in the locker room, Chuck looks at me, and I know what we're getting ready to do. Mm-hmm. So he walks out of the room, and I grab Joe. I say, I need to talk to you. And he's like, and I had a look on my face, and he like, Zeke, what's wrong? Is something wrong? Mm-hmm. It's like, we just need to talk to you. Now the media, nobody, none had came in. And then Chuck and I, broke the news to him, and, he just broke down and crying, and, we holding each other, and, and then you tried to get his family on the phone, but that was difficult. That was really, really tough. But that's what we had to do.
For sure, man. And I commend you on that. That's a tough thing to even play with. I don't know. Like we had, and that's hard to compare and contrast, but even with Kobe, what happened with Kobe, even just having that service before that was probably one of the hardest games that I've had to play as an athlete, after going through all those emotions and knowing, and, watching the videos of him and his family. And it's just tough, man, that weight and so those emotions, up and down emotions, will play a game like that. We lost the game.
Yeah, of course you did. Of course you did. I mean, emotionally, how could you win?
So for you to play well and win that game, man, it's tough. But we're going to wrap up on a better note. Talk about a little bit about your Indiana days. My brother actually went to Indiana. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I didn't know that.
I have a younger brother, Devontae Green, who he's a senior this year. And he's trying to figure out, the process, because they haven't been able to make the tournament or play in the tournament the last couple of years the way he wanted to. So this year they would have had opportunity, and it got cut short. But they had a good enough record, and if they would have played well in the tournament,
I did not know that was your brother, man.
Yep.
And I'm sorry.
It's all right, man.
I would have looked out a whole lot better.
A lot, yeah. a lot of people.
Apologies, brother.
It's all good.
Like, hey, man.
A lot of people don't know my brothers. We don't look alike or act alike. We're very different people. And he's actually coming here in a couple of days to come work out with me and hopefully get prepared for this process of trying to get drafted or get on a team. But to those who don't know, what advice would you give those younger guys or those players that are, said they're seniors that got cut short or entering the draft in the process? And obviously he's an Indiana alum. What was some advice you give him, considering I guess the process is different now due to the pandemic? What are the things that he can do? What are the things that he can, I guess, make himself noticeable? Obviously, that he hasn't been playing the tournament.
I would say, in terms of trying to make an NBA roster, and this better than anyone, most NBA teams, if they get a star, great. Mm-hmm. But most NBA teams aren't looking for a star. Yeah. They looking for
the ones that made the playoffs. Yeah,
they're looking for somebody who can be a good teammate, be a good person, be around the group, and that's what you're trying to do. And my advice to him would be, from an athletic standpoint, whatever shape you think you're in, get in better shape.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm not talking about just strength shape. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about stamina.
Wins, running.
Yeah, because if you do go to trials or workouts, with different teams, what I always found and what I always had as an advantage, I always thought that I was in better shape than the person that I was competing against. Mm-hmm. And if I can fatigue that person, then, when people get fatigued, then they make turnovers, they make mistakes. So in these workouts, if you're in better physical condition than the player that you're going against, because Devontae's not going to have an advantage athletically, right? The guy that you match up with, everybody's going to be probably the same type of athlete. But his physical conditioning is something that I would say during this period of time, truly work on in terms of your stamina. And also, of course, it probably runs in the family, being able to shoot the ball. So shooting and stamina, those are the two things that I would work on.
For sure, man. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate your time, man. This has been amazing. Obviously didn't mean to put you through certain emotions. Obviously wanted to keep it light and keep it fun and happy. So the stories were great, man. This was a lot of fun. And hopefully said we can do it again. And said hopefully we can celebrate, get back to the normal. We can celebrate with the champagne. Our champagne.
Your champagne.
Yeah. So
honorary bottle right here.
Yeah. So Yeah, man, we really appreciate the time, man, and hopefully, so keep the family safe. Tell everyone, give everyone our best, and keep in touch. Hopefully, so we can get back to some normalcy and do this again in person and be able to celebrate with our champagne.
Likewise. Thank you for having me. I appreciate all of you.